Welcome to Sex Care is Self-Care, a conversation on women's sexual health brought to you by the She Plus Foundation. I'm your host, Patty Brisben. Today's episode features someone who is changing the narrative on women's health in real time, Bonnie Gross, the creator of the groundbreaking Lady Parts documentary. She's joining us to talk about what it really means to finally put women's health at the center of this story. So, Bonnie, welcome. The documentary is amazing. I think we just had the conversation where I think every single home should have this on, and mom and dad both need to be watching this.
Yes.
I want you to introduce yourself to the listeners out there who haven't met you yet. So tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah. So my name is Bonnie. I'm born and raised in Philadelphia. Kind of lived all over the place in my 20s and 30s, but I'm the writer and executive producer of Lady Parts, which you heard about. It's based on my own true story about moving back home with my parents to get vulvovaginal surgery. And it's a comedy. A lot of people don't want to laugh, but it's a comedy. And it's all about kind of bridging those relationships and having those tough conversations, but doing it in a way that we can talk about our bodies and it's completely okay. And for me, I've been working on this for 9 years, but I've also been working full-time jobs just to make this film happen. It's completely self-financed, and everything about it is just there to kind of help educate, and it's for everybody. And, on top of that, I still like to travel. I've been to over 30 countries now,
Wow.
over 40 states. So that's kind of my other thing I like to do in my free time, when my body's not fighting against me. And we've kind of taken this to about 13 different festivals now. We've gotten amazing feedback. And now I've also been working with the nonprofit Tight-Lipped and helping them with their advocacy and their OBGYN residency campaign to kind of make sure that we're filling those gaps in OBGYN residency education to include vulvovaginal, pelvic pain conditions such as, vestibulodynia, endometriosis, you name it.
Thank you.
So my whole life has really become about vulvas and vaginas, which if you'd told me that 10 years ago, I don't know if I would have believed you.
I believe it.
Yeah.
What inspired you? I think you said that because it was the pain that you have gone
Mhm.
through in your lifetime. How much of this story, Lady Parts, is pulled from your own lived experiences?
Oh, so much. The surgery that it talks about, I actually got in 2016. For me, I mean, I remember it as early as being 13 years old, trying to put a tampon in, feeling like there was a wall, and then also feeling like this burning, pain, stinging sensation, and just feeling completely frustrated and just kind of grinning and bearing the pain because I thought this is just what it's supposed to be. And especially when I became, sexually active and got my first pap smear. I remember, when I was 18, I went in for my first pap smear because my mom is actually a cervical cancer survivor. So that is
Oh, wow.
also a true part of the movie that you'll hear about in the end. And I know, spoiler, but so she found out she had it from a routine pap smear, which is, why you go in and get pap smears done is for that preventative care. And because she went in for her annual, they caught it early, she was completely fine. And so when I was 18, my mom was like, "You're going in for your first one, and we're going to go every year." And I remember very vividly the doctor putting the speculum in, and it literally felt like a hot knife was digging into me. And I remember like shrieking in pain and being like, "This is terrible." And the doctor kind of held me down, told me to stop squirming and still perform the test. And, ever since that, I didn't go back for years because I was so terrified just from that experience alone. Even though I knew, this could be like life or death, not going to get it and getting early cancer detection, I was so scared. And, as my journey went on, I found that I was getting medically gaslit. I went to like 4 different states, over 20 different doctors trying to get a diagnosis. At 19 years old, I was told to drink wine for my painful
Yeah.
sex. Yeah, the cure is always alcohol, apparently. I was, someone tried to prescribe me Xanax at one point. I was told
Yeah.
to try yoga. I'm sure a lot of women have that
All in your
very
head.
similar.
All
Yeah,
in
it's
your
all in
head.
your head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
just
you just got to relax. And
yes. Yeah.
you
I
know,
just didn't think about that, you know? I just didn't think, but
it sounds like there's been so much trauma for you and
mhm.
what you've been through. How how did you decide to kind of make this a little bit more fun and funny? How did you decide how to do the tone of this show? Like making it comical.
Yeah, absolutely. So after I got the surgery in 2016, I wrote a blog post. I didn't really give any details at that time, but I got a lot of amazing feedback after putting it out there. Like 600 people, and they were reaching out saying, "Wow, I didn't know this was happening," or like, "I have something similar happening. It's really cool you're talking about this." And that was kind of what sparked me to be like, maybe I should do something about this. And I'm a comedian. I kind of see life as a comedy.
Yeah.
Or I think it's the quote, life is a tragedy up close, but a comedy in wide.
Hmm.
And I think what's really cool about the story is it really mimics just real life, because in the same moment you're crying, you could be hysterically laughing.
Yeah.
And, when we're talking about this kind of subject matter, I don't think anyone wants to watch me just saying, here's some statistics and why you should care, and it's depressing and awful. You want to be able to kind of laugh about it, and laughing is very healing. And although it's serious at times, and we do get into that, I feel like it's really important to kind of see, both sides of it. There is humor to it, and if you can't laugh, that's just life.
I think it helps people to kind of relax and be able to,
Hmm.
like not feel like they're pinned in a room watching
Yes.
this. It gives them the opportunity to kind of like, well, she's laughing. It's going to be okay. I know she's going to be okay in the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's
Um,
like makes them feel okay to laugh about it and talk about it too. It kind of opens that conversation,
One
which
of
is
the
nice.
things that you were saying in your film is saying vagina loud
Yes.
and proud. And I love that because, and I love the fact that, when you were talking to the doctor and went to him for the first time and you're going down there and he's like, no,
No,
I,
stop doing that.
yes, stop doing. And we talk to women all the time about know your body, be able to
Yes.
speak to your physician. Um, do you feel that that's important, knowing your body parts and it
Yeah.
empowers you?
Oh, it empowers you tenfold. I
Yeah,
mean, because if we're using these like, silly, goofy names for our genitalia, it kind of diminishes, what they are and how important they are. And if I can't talk about my bodily autonomy, like it's going to be really difficult for me to even ask for what I want or what I need. And,
exactly.
we've kind of made vagina, vulva, anything like related to the female genitalia as these like terrible taboo words, when in reality, it's just a body part. I feel like we can say penis as much as we want, but we can't say vagina.
Well,
Um,
I agree with you because I feel that, women are born with shame
yeah, oh,
because
100%.
flower, choo choo, ha
Oh, you
ha,
mean these
whatever.
ones? Yeah.
Yeah, those, vajayjay,
J, bits, foo foo.
downstairs. I hate all of that. And
Yeah.
I encourage parents, both of them, to get comfortable with the
Well,
body parts.
yes, and I find, when I've talked to, some of the specialists in the field, it's really difficult too because you have a pain patient coming in and they can't even describe where the pain is because they don't know their own body parts. And it's not,
Right.
their fault or anything. It's just, if you're constantly having to be your own advocate, which a lot of times when you have any kind of vulvovaginal pelvic pain, you're immediately having to become your own advocate. It's really hard to even just describe what you're feeling and where you're feeling it.
Um, that's it. Yeah. And
And
you've got to be
yeah.
able to do that.
And that's the reason the film is called Lady Parts. It's actually a play on words, We don't want you to say lady parts anymore, but it gets you in the door to see it.
It does get you in the door. Many people, especially women with pelvic vulvar pain, said that they felt ignored or dismissed by healthcare providers.
Mhm.
How can a patient prepare to advocate for themselves in this situation?
It's really tough. My heart goes out because I've been in that position.
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah. For me, what I like to do is I usually bring like a trusted person with me, whether that's my mom or a friend or a partner or whoever that is for you, because I like to have that person in the room because I feel like sometimes I'm very like if I'm in a lot of pain and I'm going through like a big anxiety attack, it's kind of nice to have somebody there who can kind of help talk and answer questions or
Mhm.
kind of ask questions and knowing too that, at any point you can say you want to stop. There's nothing, you don't have to go through with any tests. You don't have to do anything. You're allowed to stop at any point. And then also kind of knowing, when you go in, you're in control and you can ask questions. And it's really hard because I feel like there's this power dynamic where, as the patient, you feel like the doctor knows everything and they're, have my best interest at heart, which we hope for most doctors. And a lot of times it's hard to flip that on its head and say stop, or I don't want to do that, or I don't think that's right. Um, but I always say too, just because you go to a doctor and they say something doesn't mean you have to go back either. You don't owe them anything.
You
You
owe
can
them
always go
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really feel that because we lack so much in research that our doctors really are not prepared for any of this. And
No.
I'm so glad that you're out there working with all of the new docs that are going to start their practices and talking about vulvar pain. That's so important, and I'm sure that when they have that patient, they're going to be so glad that you came in and spoke on this. So, if you could sum up in just one sentence what you hope that every viewer of Lady Parts takes away about their body, their voice, and their sexual self care, what would it be?
I think my biggest thing is that like your pain is real and you know
Yeah.
your body better than anybody else does. I think that would be my biggest takeaway. Whether you're feeling pain, you're feeling pleasure, whatever it is, you're going to know more about your own body than anybody else.
And you have to advocate for yourself. You
Yeah,
do.
you have to. It's unfortunate, and I wish it wasn't that way, but with the healthcare system and the way things are set up, it's unfortunate that you really do have to be, your own advocate. It's almost like a full-time job,
Do you
really seeking
think
out care.
being able to go online and asking questions, was there a place for you where you found somebody? How did you find the doctor who finally
Oh, yeah.
listened to you?
It was a while. I won't put it that way. It was a
Yeah.
long time before I found someone. For me, I always say too, you have to remember, we're talking early 2010s, like
Yeah.
there was no TikTok, there was no Instagram.
Mm-mm.
We had a family computer. It was very hard to find anything about that. And now there's so many resources, but it was so isolating at that time, because I felt like, oh, this is only happening to me. There's no
Right.
one else in the world that's dealing with this. It's only happening to me. And that's so far from the truth. And I think for me, what really did it is I was just going doctor to doctor to doctor. I had my dad's cousin was a pelvic floor PT, and finally we somehow got in contact with her. And she was the one that led me to Dr. Andrew Goldstein, who is,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm sure you've heard of it. He's in New York
Yes.
and DC. And I was actually interning in New York at the time for the summer. I called their practice and they luckily called me back and like, we have a cancellation. And so I was like, I'm coming in. I'm making, I was just so frustrated at that point that I was like, I'll do anything, because a lot of people think, oh, it's just pain with sex. And I'm like, no, I mean, if my nerve endings on the opening of my vulva ended up, I have too many nerve endings. So I mean, I had pain with sitting, wearing pants, riding a bike. I mean, you name it.
Yes.
And at that point, I was just desperate. I was like, I will do anything to just find answers. And he was able to diagnose me within 5 minutes. And we actually, he believed me right away, which was
Right.
huge. And, he actually came to my to the screening in New York 10 years later after. So it's been like about 10 years since that first appointment, and he was able to come to our one of our screenings in New York, which was really amazing.
What was that like for you when you finally met Dr. Goldstein and
Oh,
he looked at you and told you what was happening to your body? I mean, was it like a sigh of relief?
yeah.
Was it like What was it like?
Yeah. It's huge,
Yeah.
because I think, especially if you've been told for years that it's all in your head and you do all these things and it's not working, you start to just feel like defeated. You're like, oh, well, I'm just going to live with this pain forever and this is
Uh-huh.
just my life.
Right.
And when someone finally believes you, it also, starts to bleed into everything else in your life. You start to gaslight yourself and be like, am I even in pain? Am I
Right.
the problem?
Yeah.
Is this relationship even, and you start to really second guess everything. So having that person that's able to be like, yes, this is, and even I always say too, just having a diagnosis, you might not have the cure or the treatment or, be in no pain the next day, but having that diagnosis made me feel so much relief knowing that like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is truly what's happening. And now I feel like we're at least making a plan forward.
Yeah.
Like mentally, I can't even describe how like empowering that felt.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now we just need more Goldsteins out there. And
Yeah.
I think we're starting to get them. I think doctors who are coming on board right now are saying, I got to dig a little bit deeper. And
Yeah.
research is so important. I know that you work with tight-lipped, and there's people out there that's going to be listening to this podcast and go, what is this tight-lipped stuff?
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about tight-lipped and how did tight-lipped impact your journey?
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually found Tight-Lipped after filming Lady Parts. I run the Lady Parts Instagram, and of course, it's like accounts you might like. And I came across Tight-Lipped, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's someone else out here trying to change this whole thing finally." So I reached out to them, went to their meetings, and I've been involved ever since. But they're a grassroots nonprofit advocacy organization by and for chronic vulvovaginal pelvic patients like myself. So our big thing right now is the OBGYN residency campaign. We're going in to try to fill gaps in OBGYN residency programs. Right now, there's nothing in the curriculum about vulvovaginal or pelvic pain.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, your vagina doctor is the first people you're going to go see as an OBGYN. They don't know, they're not, given and equipped with the tools to even try to, diagnose or treat or give that frontline care or refer out if needed. So we're really trying to go in and change that education. And I think for me, what's been really great is, I made the film under the same guise. I want to change the narrative. I want to spread awareness. I want to start a conversation. And I'm coming, approaching it from the like filmmaking storytelling. And Tight-Lipped does a lot of storytelling as well. They started as a podcast. And I think what's really cool is now I can actually take all the stuff I've learned, take it as a tool, and then really like make change I can see. We've gone into residency programs, we've talked to them now, and we even had a resident approach our booth recently at a conference, and she's like, I remember you guys gave a patient panel, you gave a lecture, and actually now I just did my first Q-tip test on a client. Because of you guys. And so I think it was really cool to see, not only are we changing a conversation, but we're making like change you can see it's real. And
Yeah.
you can see like actually the impact it's having. And now someone maybe seeing one of these doctors might not have to go through 10 years of, searching for a diagnosis or searching for someone to believe them. It's huge.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing, you all are doing such great work.
Thank
What
you.
was the hardest part of the film that focuses on lady parts, like vulvar health, the language, the taboo, the recovery? What was the hardest part for you on this film?
For me, I think it was really exposing myself,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was huge because when I wrote the script, it was still script, so only a few of my friends had read it or knew about it. And then, when we're in production, you know, only the people on set. But what really got me is when we put that first fundraising, push out there. And I was like, here's my story, here's what we're doing. Suddenly it's no longer my story to tell. It's everybody else's. And, anywhere I go, someone can now look me up on the internet and find this out about me. It's not a conversation I get to have with them. It's been really interesting, running into people who know everything about lady parts and my lady parts. And then I'm like, oh, we never had this conversation, but this is all easily accessible. And I think it was me having to be okay with that and knowing, at the end of the day, this is a huge, huge vulnerable thing that I'm having to put out there and say, this is my story, here it is, and everyone now can know about this in the world, and kind of knowing, okay, well, it's no longer my story, it's everybody else's.
And
Um,
here, thank you for sharing this story because you're opening up so many doors for so many women who have felt like nobody's listened to them. They've been
yeah,
dismissed. And I'm sure that when you're there, you're hearing so many of their stories and you're giving them permission to share this and to finally just be able to just release and let go and know that somebody knows exactly what they're going through. Because sometimes
yeah.
you feel so alone in all of that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so isolating, and a
Yeah.
lot of times you don't even know it's a problem. We're just
Yeah.
told that women inherently are supposed to be in pain or have this shame with them, and it's like sometimes someone just sees it and go, "Oh my God, I think I have this," or I think I have a condition.
It's just part of being a lady. I mean,
Yeah, you're
yeah.
just in pain all the time.
Yeah.
Not true. I want to make that clear. Not true.
Uh, what role did partnering with medical experts and pelvic floor specialists and urogynecology and gynecology professionals, um, how did they play in the authenticity of this film? Did
I
they?
think. Not necessarily. I mean, obviously, I saw a ton of medical professionals in my time. So a lot of what I would take was, specifically in the film, there's this scene where, she's at Dr. Goldstein's office. It's a different doctor in the film, obviously, but she's at the doctor. He's kind of explaining like vestibulodynia to her and like the surgery and what's going to happen, and the parents are there. And it's this whole comedic conversation, but it's really insightful at the same time. And that was actually the first scene I ever wrote. I wrote that first scene in 2017, and I wrote that whole scene was like this needs to be a thing. I love this scene, I
Nice.
love this concept, and I loved every kind, and I feel like that's such an important scene because it's like the parents coming to support, the doctor that finally believes her, and you get a kind of insight into all these past doctors she's seen and told her, just to calm down and try more lube as the solution. Um,
Hmm.
I think it was really important. We have the medical terminology in there, but it's really from the perspective of this patient who's taking in all this information, is taking in all this new stuff she's learning about her body. Um, and I remember even there's a scene about the dilators where she calls them Russian doll dildos, and that's something I did when I was in my session. So
Yeah.
a lot of it was taken from like, imagining from the patient perspective, because I think we get a lot of doctor perspectives sometimes and we don't really get these patient perspectives. And it was important to know, like, okay, here's this patient that knows nothing, is coming in like, I don't even know where my parts are. I don't know what I'm doing. And kind of being in that world, being like, what is happening? And then where the medical professionals have really played in, which has been great, is when we've done screenings and stuff like that, we'll usually try to do a sexual health panel, Q&A. We'll try to bring in those kind of people. So
Yeah.
after the film, it can be more educational too. We've done pelvic floor PTs, sexual medicine experts, anyone like a sex therapist. We've brought in to kind of talk, and we've done anonymous questions before too, if people don't feel comfortable asking. We've done kind of events and tangent with them to try to get patients involved. And now we're kind of doing a road show in 2026.
You should
So,
take your parents.
oh, my parents have seen it multiple times. They
But
love it.
they should have their own panel on how is it that you support
Yeah,
somebody going through this.
that's a good idea.
You haven't experienced it, you don't know, but
Yeah.
how can I support her?
How can yes,
Yeah,
how can you support a loved one
yes.
going through something like
I
this?
think your parents would be, I love your parents. I've not met them, but watching them on the show, I mean, it's like, oh my God, everybody should have parents like hers, you
Yes.
know, because they were so supportive. And it's like, this is going to cost a lot of money, but we've got this. And I
Yeah.
think probably because of the experience that your mom had been through too,
Hmm.
and how your dad felt. I don't, like I said, I'm halfway in it. But I think that probably played a huge part. But I think also at the same time, it's like if you don't know anything about any of this, how can I support them? How can I help advocate for them? So
Yeah.
I vote that your parents should have a class.
I love that idea. I'm
Yeah.
totally going to do something, or even just a social media series or something.
Yes.
We can do a whole thing.
Yeah.
I Yeah, because I always tell people too, you don't need to know all the intricacies of, the vulva and all the parts and exactly the names and terminologies, but
Yeah.
you do need to know how to like treat someone with compassion, trauma-informed care, and just
Yes.
kind of knowing, hey, I don't even care. I'm just going to be there for you because that's really all it is just
Yeah.
being there and really just being that person.
So, what is it that you hope clinicians and researchers and policymakers, what do you hope that they take away from this film?
I hope that a bunch of stuff, but I hope that they can watch it and really take away that, one, we need to be researching this. There needs to be so much more funding, resources and stuff
Hmm.
like that. But on top of it, it's just kind of knowing, these are real conditions. These are real people. We are living with pain. We're living with debilitating pain. And you might not see it. It's a little bit of an invisible illness, I always say because a lot of times, you can't see it. But, there's so many of us that are living with these chronic conditions and living in, extreme pain, and no one should be living in pain.
No.
And I think, as a doctor, especially, even if you don't know what's going on with me, I would so much rather you say you don't know, but we're going to figure it out together than tell me, just to try yoga and dismiss me. And I really wish more doctors would kind of take that time to be like, you know what, maybe I do have a gap in my education. Maybe there is something I'm missing here, and kind of take that time just to learn the basics. And, I always feel like I go into doctors and sometimes I know more than them when it comes to vulvovaginal pain. And I don't want that to be the case anymore.
I don't want it to be the case either, but I think that because you've been through so much, you
Yeah.
probably do know a lot more than they do. And we got to get our physicians caught up, and
Yes.
we have got to put more money into research. And it's really that is so important. I mean, to get people to donate for
Hmm.
sexual health is just it's hard right
It's
now.
hard.
It's
Yeah. A lot
difficult.
of people hear sexual health and they think, oh no, like 'cause
Yeah.
they hear sex and it's just such a connotation. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're talking about people that, you deserve to have pain-free sex. You deserve to have pleasure. You deserve to be pain-free,
Hmm.
regardless of where it is on your body. There's a line in it that I was talking about that, if I had this nerve ending problem on my shoulder, we could talk about it, it'd get fixed, it'd be no problem. But because of where
Right.
it's located, suddenly it's this big taboo thing.
It's a taboo thing because having sex is a luxury. And
Apparently a
only if you're going to
luxury.
really die should you be able to have that.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's everybody deserves to live healthy and happy. And and we do as women, we need more researchers for our doctors. So when we go there, we do not feel dismissed.
Yes.
Um, I could be on this call all day with you
Same.
because I adore you. I love what you're doing. I love how you're advocating for women, and thank you so much. But I have one last question. What did I not ask today that you're like, I wish you would have asked me this? Do you have anything that you want to tell us a little bit more about before we close out?
Oh wow. Like you said, I could talk forever. So it's a
Yes.
little hard. I could talk about this like for hours. But I think we hit a lot of really good points. And I think, if you're someone struggling with this or you have a loved one struggling with this, like there's resources out there, there's support out there. You're not alone. You're not alone in this fight either. And things are changing. And, we've kind of seen it, like I've seen now that people are speaking out about endometriosis and people are speaking out about menopause. These things are getting changed. Like the black box label was taken off for menopause. Like we're
Yes.
seeing real change happen. And my like dream, I guess, is I want to see that real change happen for vestibulodynia. I
Yes.
want vestibulodynia to have its moment too and kind of really make this huge overarching change and get people to say, if 16% of women in the US have, you know, vulvodynia, then why are we not talking about it? That's a huge amount of people in pain. And let's be real, we don't even know if there's probably more that are shameful, don't want to mention it, don't want to talk about it or report it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I think a huge part I always like to say too is, you know, my journey is coming from a very privileged place. And I know that too. You know, I had supportive parents who had the money and resources. Obviously, I'm white. Obviously, you know, where I grew up and how I grew up. And so if you can imagine how hard it was for me to get accessible care, you can only imagine how bad the problem really goes.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah, and I think it's always a really important point that I like to make because, you know, you're seeing this story and you're like, wow, this is how is it taking so long for her to get help? And how is she going through all these obstacles and knowing like, wow, this is like the most privileged story of them all.
Right.
You know, I hear stories that are not like this, you know, with unsupportive parents or support. And a lot of people, it's very expensive. I mean, the surgery right now is about, I think it was like 10 grand when I got it, not covered. Um,
Not
and you know,
covered.
just not
Yeah.
covered. Insurance called it cosmetic at the time.
Yeah. And it was
So
anything but cosmetic. I
oh,
mean,
trust me, I did
yeah.
not want to get it done. It
Yeah.
was not a
Yeah.
cosmetic decision. So I'm hoping, you know, things are changing and, you know, we're just going to be here and keep fighting and keep talking about it. And, you know, that's part of the reason for the roadshow and why we're continuing to push to get this film out there.
I'm telling you that people who are out there listening, I don't have that problem. I can promise you, you probably know somebody who does.
Mhm.
And they need your support, they need your voice. So help us get more research. That's what we
Yeah,
need.
please.
Bonnie, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here today. But
Mhm.
most of all, this great documentary. Thank you so much. It's amazing. Listeners, you can learn more about Lady Parts on the She Plus Foundation website. If you like what you heard today, please rate and subscribe to our podcast. For more information on the She Plus Foundation, you can go to www.sheplusfoundation.com. Remember, sex care is self-care and sexual health matters.